Chapter 6, Stairway to Heaven. I had a dream last night. The old man jumped. Couldn't the boy not cough politely or say, "Excuse me"? Must he just suddenly be there, talking? It scattered the old man's thoughts like birds out of a tree. I dreamed I was Jack, climbing the beanstalk. "I only have nightmares," said the carpenter. "Was one of Jesus' ancestors a fireman?" "Certainly not. Why?" "Well, where's that ladder going?" He came and put his small fingers on the rungs of the ladder that stood propped mysteriously among the leaves of the carved Jesse tree. "Don't meddle," said its maker. The little fingers climbed the ladder, rung by rung. "Tell me." Everything about Jacob was smooth, from his well-washed skin to the words in his mouth. Only his wits were sharp. His mother thought the world of him. His father, Isaac, preferred Esau, though. Esau was rough and tough, as different as straw from silk, and Esau was his firstborn son. Esau and Jacob were twins, born only moments apart, but in those days it mattered very much who came first into the light of day. So Esau was his father's heir, and Jacob wasn't. When Isaac died, Esau would become head of the family, and Jacob wouldn't. That one thought chafed like straw against silk. Esau was a hunter, forever chasing deer across the plains and through the tangled woods. Jacob preferred to stay at home. His mother liked to have him near her. Also, he had plenty of time to think. One day, Esau came home half dead with weariness. He flung himself down, muddy from head to foot with twigs in his hair. "Give me something to eat, brother. I'm exhausted." Quietly, Jacob glided to the fire, filled a wooden bowl with stew. Its scent filled the room, rich and delicious. "You give me your birthright," he said teasingly, "and I'll give you the stew." "Hurry up! I'm starving to death," complained Esau. "It's yours, in return for your birthright." "What do you mean, my birthright? Give me the stew, can't you?" "From now on, I'm the firstborn, that's all." Esau wagged a weary hand. "Whatever you say." After all, how could a bowl of stew change the facts? Esau had seen the light of day first. He wolfed down the stew and fell fast asleep. But Jacob held him to the deal. By the time Esau awoke, everyone knew that he had sold his place as Isaac's heir in return for a bowl of stew. His only comfort? He was still his father's favorite son. His father's blessing would surely come to him. "Hunt a deer and cook its meat for me," whispered old Isaac one day, frail as a cobweb, as blind and chilly as ice. "Then I shall give you my dying blessing." Now, in those days, a father's blessing was considered as powerful as a wish granted. Away went Esau to catch his deer. In slid Jacob, subtle as a cat, his forearms covered in strips of fur, his borrowed clothes smelling of the woods. His mother had put him up to it.
"Here you are, father. It's me, Esau. I brought you the venison you asked for."
Isaac took the bowl of tender meat from Jacob, as unsuspecting as Esau had been when he had taken the stew. "My boy," said the old man, feeling the coarse, hairy hands that clasped the bowl, "let me kiss you. My blessing is yours." And thus, for a second time, Jacob stole from his brother. When Esau found out how he had been cheated, he begged Isaac to bless him too. "My blessing is already given," said the old man, sharing his son's sorrow. Esau was so angry that Jacob had to run for his life, out into the countryside where he had never hunted, out into the woods where the deer knew the way better than he, out under a scowling sky. Who knows why God forgave Jacob, the trickster, the cheat, except that God forgives most things. Who knows why God leaned out of heaven and kissed Jacob on his smooth forehead, but he did. That night, Jacob lay down to sleep with only a rock for a pillow, and he had the strangest dream of his life. He dreamed he saw a bright hole in the sky above him, as if he were lying on the bottom of a frozen lake, looking up through a hole in the ice, and stretched down from the hole was a ladder, the longest ladder imaginable, and as broad as a flight of stairs. Figures of snowy brightness were climbing the ladder, their faces brushed by the hems of yet more figures climbing down from above. Angels. "Jacob," said a voice within his dream, "just as I promised your grandfather, Abraham, I am going to make you a father of a great people, and bring them into a land of their own." Even when Jacob awoke, the dream lingered behind in his eyelids, like a flash of lightning. He knew that God had spoken to him. He knew that being part of God's plan would cost him more than a bowl of stew or a dish of meat. He knew that God would ask more of him than tricks and a quick wit. And he was filled with excitement and joy and terror and shock all at once. Above all, he longed to tell his twin brother, but of course that was out of the question. One day, he would have to put things right with Esau. "I suppose if your Jesse tree were tall enough, the angels could glide up and down that," said the boy. "Don't talk crazy," said the old man. But funnily enough, that night the carpenter dreamed that his Jesse tree had grown like some magic beanstalk all the way up into the sky, and tourists were climbing up and down it, their mouths white with ice cream and laughter.